Tonight, Mounties cleared. BC's police watchdog says officers acted accordingly. New crime stats. Shoplifting cases in Fort St. John on the increase. And scam alert. PV Mart shoppers told to beware. Good evening, and thank you very much for joining us. And we begin tonight with BC's police watchdog clearing Dawson Creek RCMP officers of any wrongdoing during an armed standoff in November of 2023. Now, the Independent Investigations Office of British Columbia says Ryan Boulio exchanged gunfire with police from inside a house on 10th Street. 3 women were inside the home at the time, but they managed to escape. Sources telling CJDC-TV News at the time that Boulio live-streamed part of the shootout on Facebook. At one point, he told viewers he wasn't going to be taken alive. He then shot and killed himself. The civilian director of Independent Investigations Office says their investigation took into account Boulio's First Nations background. The report says that the officers involved acted in a legal manner and were trying to arrest Boulio on a number of outstanding warrants. The report goes on to say over a lengthy period of time, police tried to resolve the matter with a peaceful conclusion. Boulio had a long criminal history. He was found guilty of the murder of Wesley Lulu Gladue in 2011. He was also the main suspect in the death of Tim Guy in May of 2022. And the latest crime stats out of Fort St. John pointing to a notable increase in shoplifting and the number of vehicle thefts. In his monthly report, Staff Sergeant Scott Watson says shoplifting cases have jumped from 14 in December to 24 last month. Watson calling the increase a, quote, dramatic upward trend, unquote. Car thefts were also up last month with 11 reports. The trend appears to be carrying on into February, with RCMP saying 6 cars were stolen between Friday and this Monday. In 2 of those cases, drivers leaving their cars unattended in warm-up thefts. However, thefts from vehicles was actually down slightly from 11 to 7 in January. And police are warning the public about an online scam concerning PV Mart. Officers say fake websites and social media accounts are popping up, which closely resembles the hardware chain's official channels. They offer goods at up to 90% off the sticker price. Well, PV Mart is in the process of closing down permanently, and all sales are in-store only. It does not offer online shopping. And police reminding the public not to click on the links received from an unknown number or that pop up on social media. The Peace River Regional District announcing it'll implement the province's new building code requirements. The changes take effect on March 10th for all new building permits. The new rules include improved earthquake design standards and a new zero carbon emission standard. Buildings in high-risk areas will need to be better designed to withstand seismic events. And that includes reinforcing bathroom walls with grab bars and making the first floor of small apartments fully accessible. Now, the PRRD will also enforce the first level of zero carbon step code. It'll require builders to measure and disclose greenhouse gas emissions and to install systems to track and report them. The province estimates seismic changes will lead a project's total costing approximately 1 to 5% more. We reached out to the PRRD today about enforcing the zero carbon code and potential development fees, but didn't receive a reply in time for broadcast. However, in a release, they say they're committed to helping developers understand the new code requirements. Double-digit lows in Dawson Creek has led the city to extend its emergency warming center. The Nolican Friendship Center was scheduled to close its doors today, but it'll now be open through February the 19th for those looking for relief from the cold. The site, located at 102nd Avenue, will be open around the clock. Light refreshments will be made available for those in need of support. The City of Dawson Creek says it is being made possible in part thanks to funding provided through the Ministry of Emergency Management and Climate Readiness. Environment Canada is warning of overnight lows below -20 throughout this week. Well, the emergency department at the Fort Nelson Hospital is on diversion. The emergency room closing at 9 this evening and will not reopen until 7 o'clock tomorrow morning. Northern Health once again citing staffing challenges for the closure. The diversion is the first this month in Fort Nelson. Those in need of life-threatening medical care are asked to be called 911 to be transferred to the closest available hospital. When asked, Northern Health said it's important to treat patients within an hour. However, the closest hospital is 3.5 hours away in Fort St. John. A new crisis line is now available to help Canadian farmers and their families. The Canadian Centre for Agricultural Wellbeing's new line connects those in need with the supports best suited for them. Research shows that generational farming concerns, different livestock pandemics, and the uncertainty in the ag industry are leading the causes of suicide among farmers.
Our small communities, one suicide affects not just one little family, but it's the whole community. When you live in communities where everybody plays and everybody participates, it's those multi-generational farmers have that sense of belonging and ownership of the community, and so they invest in a different way than somebody that maybe comes in and goes out.
The 24/7 crisis line can be accessed by calling 1-866-FARMS-01. More now on those U.S. steel and aluminum tariffs that will take effect on March the 12th. The Prime Minister said today that Canada will respond. Justin Trudeau is in Paris, where he continues to talk trade with European allies. CTV's Rachel Aiello has the details.
Tariffs on Canadian steel and aluminum would be entirely unjustified.
Prime Minister Justin Trudeau today slamming U.S. President Donald Trump's new steel and aluminum tariffs, stopping short of committing to a dollar-for-dollar retaliatory response.
If it comes to that, our response, of course, will be firm and clear.
It's a big deal. This is the beginning of making America rich again.
Trump signed an executive order that would impose 25% tariffs on steel and aluminum imports, without exceptions. Canada did retaliate back in 2018, when similar measures were imposed during the NAFTA renegotiations before receiving a carve-out.
We will be working with the American administration over the coming weeks to highlight the negative impacts on Americans and Canadians of these unacceptable tariffs.
That work with the Americans began today at the summit that brought Trudeau and U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance into the same room.
Why are you slapping tariffs? Are you serious about making Canada the 51st state, sir?
According to a senior government source, Trudeau and Vance briefly spoke, and the Prime Minister brought up how steel tariffs would impact Ohio, the Vice President's home state. With Canada-U.S. tensions strained, Trudeau said he plans to work with other world leaders who have also been impacted by Trump's latest trade action, such as the European Union, which has vowed the U.S. President's tariffs will not go unanswered. The Prime Minister has already been interacting with some of these allies on the sidelines of the summit, and others he may see tomorrow when he travels to Brussels. Rachel Aiello, CTV News, Paris.
Canada's 13 premiers and territorial leaders are in Washington, D.C. today, trying to put an end to the brewing trade war with the United States. Ontario Premier Doug Ford spoke about building a fortress AMCAM, with Canada and the United States uniting forces to stop China from ripping off Americans. It didn't appear to be a member of Donald Trump's team in the room, the event co-hosted by the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, but the audience was mainly from Ontario. The premiers say they will use the next few days to convince congressional leaders that tariffs will cause too much pain for American consumers. So far, they're avoiding talk about retaliation for now. The federal government has chosen a former senior RCMP officer to be Canada's point person on fighting the spread of fentanyl. Kevin Brousseau's role will include working with American counterparts to accelerate Canada's efforts to disrupt and dismantle the illicit trade of drugs. It's one of the main reasons U.S. President Donald Trump is threatening tariffs on all Canadian goods. Brousseau is a 20-year veteran of the RCMP. He served as deputy commissioner and the senior Mountie in Manitoba. Well, the tide appears to be turning in Canadian federal politics. At least one poll is now suggesting that the federal Liberals are closing in on the Conservatives.
Two groups that have been moving towards the Liberals or back to the Liberals in the last few weeks. Women voters who had in December basically deserted the Liberals, they're coming back. Also in the province of Quebec, Liberal fortunes seem to be improving in the province of Quebec, where they're now pulling ahead of the Conservatives and are challenging the Bloc Québécois.
The latest Nano survey shows the Liberals now have the support of 30% of Canadians, and that's just 8 points behind the Conservatives. That gap is down from its peak of 27 points. Nano says jobs and the economy are the top issues facing Canadians, followed by Canada's relationship with Donald Trump and the United States. And Canadians' anger over U.S. tariffs has many fighting back with their wallets. But the push to buy Canadian isn't always simple. New apps are popping up to help identify local products, but as CTV's Angela Ravelli reports, they may not be that accurate.
It's faster to just turn the product over and read the fine print.
Buying Canadian has taken on extra importance in the wake of Donald Trump's tariff threats.
Any steel coming into the United States is going to have a 25% tariff.
What about aluminum, sir?
Aluminum too.
Now new apps are coming online to help people identify Canadian products. One such app called Shop Canadian helps consumers see how Canadian a product is. There's also CanMade, the app that informs shoppers if a product is made or produced in Canada, or OS Canada, which uses AI. But there are concerns over just how efficient these apps can be.
The average grocery store has tens of thousands of products on their inventory, and different products at different times based on what's in stock. So it's difficult to sign everything, and it would be impossible for an app to list every product made in Canada or made in BC.
Another concern, the reliability of the apps. For example, in the OS Canada App Store description, there's a disclaimer warning users that AI can get it wrong and some of the information could be outdated. Consumers are encouraged to use the app as a starting point, but not as a substitute for research.
Things that are labeled Product of Canada are 98% or more Product of Canada, where something that's made in Canada is only 51% or greater made in Canada.
That is something some of the apps do not specify. A disclaimer in Shop Canadian reads, "We make no guarantees as to the accuracy of the data. A product could be imported by a Canadian company, but made in another."
An amount of the jobs involved is packaging, and if it's packaged in Canada, that obviously also makes a difference. For things like fruits and vegetable and common items in the grocery store, these things are fairly easy to identify where it's coming from.
Shoppers using the apps may not receive all the reliable information needed, but can always turn to reading and understanding the label. Angelina Ravelli, CTV News, Vancouver.
Ottawa's 2-month tax holiday ends on Friday, and new data is showing it did not boost sales for 95% of small businesses. The Canadian Federation of Independent Business says only 5% of small businesses saw more sales during the tax holiday. 66% say business stayed the same, but the holiday was more of a headache than a help, with confusing rules and the need to reprogram systems and retrain staff. Air Transat is the latest airline to scrap carry-on bags for low-fare customers on most flights. Starting today, passengers on the airline's Eco Budget and Eco Promo fare class will have to check their luggage for a fee. It'll cost anywhere between $35 and $50 on flights within North and South America. The airline is also ending its policy of one free check suitcase for eco-standard flights. Travelers can still take a small personal item like a purse or laptop bag on board for free. Well, the results are in for CAA's first ever electric vehicle winter test drive, which CTV News took part in last week. The test involved driving from Ottawa to Mont-Tremblant to see how well EVs performed in extreme cold. First place went to the Chevrolet Silverado, which traveled 465 kilometers. That's 14% less than its average range. Coming in the middle of the pack, the Ford F-150 Lightning, with a winter range of 296 kilometers. And in last place, the Volvo XC40 Recharge, which traveled 248 kilometers. That's nearly 40% less than its average range.
This is also an important factor for EV owners, and a message to government and to municipalities about creating infrastructure, public infrastructure for fast charging, so people are not just relying on charging at home.
Now, this was one of the first real-world tests of electric vehicles in the winter in Canada. Across the board, the cars used drove 14 to 39% less than their official listed range. Well, a high-stakes unsolicited bid has been submitted by a group of investors that's being led by Elon Musk, and they're looking for complete control of OpenAI, the maker of ChatGPT. The more than $97 billion offer was first reported in the Wall Street Journal. Musk co-founded OpenAI with current CEO Sam Altman before departing over a feud on the future of the company. Altman has responded to the offer online, writing, "No thank you." Altman made a counteroffer to buy Musk's social media X platform for 10 times less. All right, stay tuned. I'll be right back with weather. But as we head to break, here's a look at today's closing market numbers.